morning. We start with Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga from the small booklet. From the heart of the Savior of 100 deities of Tushita, on a peak of cloud resembling a clam of extremely white fresh curd, King of Dhamma, omniscient Losandrapa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me on a lion throne, lotus and moon, my perfect pure Guru smiles with delight. Supreme field of merit for my mind of faith, please abide for 100 yons to spread the teachings. Your holy mind has the intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is an ear ornament for those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you who are meaningful to see, hear, and remember, I prostrate. Pleasing drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, lice, tended waters, and so forth. Oceans of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated, I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the three vows that I have collected from beginningless time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age, and made your freedoms and richnesses meaningful by abandoning the eight worldly concerns. Saviour, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. Perfect pure holy Gurus from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of the Dharmakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and in particular may it cause the essence of perfect pure Losandrapa's teachings to shine forever. Sajibuki Chushi Metok Dramari Rapling Nidegempadi Sange Shindu Mikte Ulwa Hidrokunamdak Shila Chuparshu. By the merits of having offered this mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa and his two sons, may I, my family members, and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and actualize the teachings of the victorious one Losang Drapa, who had a morality of an eminently pure way of life, was courageous in the extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of the two stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. By the force of having fervently requested in this way, hollow beams of white light are emitted from the hearts of the perfect pure Father and Sons, and combining into one enter my crown. White nectar, the color of milk, flows from the opening of the tube of white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, and their imprints without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. Now we recite 5-line Miktsema 3 times. Mikmetse chen chen resik dreamek yempe wampo jampe liang dupo malu jonze sangwe dak ganchen gepe tsungen tsongkapa losan drape shabla solwade. Migme tsewe te chen chen resik, dreamek yempe wampo jampe liang, dupo malu jonse sangwe dak, ganchen gepe tsungen tsongkapa, losan drape shabla solwade. Mikmet sewe terchen chen resik, dreamek yempe wampo jampe liang, dupo malu jonze sanwe dak, ganchen gepe tsungen tsongkapa, losan drape shabla solwade.
Sangye Chedan Soji Chonumla Chanchu Pardo Dan Kyapsun Chi Dagi Chishi Yebanda Dag Roland Benji Sanjin Drupara Sho Sangye Chedan Soji Chonumla Chanchu Pardo Dan Kyapsun Chi Dagi Chishi Yebanda Dagi Roland Benji Sanjin Drupara Sho Sangye Chedan Soji Chonumla Chanchu Pardo Dan Kyapsun Chi Dagi Shishi Jebanda Dagi Rolambe Sanjin Drupar Sho Kangi Tuzi Nizoni Tawa Tamche Pambi Chere Tambi Chun Tenze Kodam Tela Chanzelo Shishin Kyongon Javi Lo Dritu Kesan Navi Genju Lekshi Travi Peche Lamin Zebi Tonde Tembe Tonden La Chanzel Namalayi Kedan Lodan Noji Tribon Dada Mi Kedan Ro Kunji Ranam Chizam Tamche Kedan Dagi Choten To Good morning everyone. Why you want two malas? Ah, ah, shop deli konda. Okay, çıkırış.
Take me some good.
Tadriks, yeah, that's.
Yes.
Goçeren yer dasra. Zapastan. Godzungen keren sıra des.
So for Friday sessions, the class is to start from you by asking questions.
You have questions? Okay. Yes. Kari tenen digris. Keren kari.
You can ask any questions.
What does Chenrezig represent?
Cheriseki mixitan sende karis.
Yeah. You this was a T-shirt. There right? Om Mani Padme Hum is a Chinese mantra. 그게 대동지 디간다 엄마는 빼면 제도아
Yes.
디 제르스기 생활이스.
Yes. So the mantra which is printed on your T-shirt is in fact the mantra of Chandrisik Avalokiteshvara.
단데 대동디가라 미기치다 디차란 카르를 상우더스.
And then there is also an eye on the T-shirt, printed on the T-shirt. What do you think that eye represents?
Buddha no looking this. Buddha 기디간 미기 두스테데 치다스라.
Yes. So in the T-shirt, the eye seems to be gazing upwards. Usually the Buddha's eye gaze a little bit slightly downwards.
레 디치다 디다 디자인 로즈라스라 소프트 로즈. Just design. 다지 안다 게시슈디 캐란 저디 아니 돌랑이 제시 개긴스 안 캐란도 셴바 쪽 कुछ 디 제와 셴바 타릭시라 시스라 저 카리언 디그레스.
So I'll explain a little bit about the question we ask. While I answer, I request other members of the audience to keep ready for the next questions. You can ask any questions, any doubts that you have.
저당 단다 넘버 3기비 추려들어야 아니 동안이 연구열에서 동안이 진짜 비게 사그리 망부직 가서 다지 응아단 데비토니 아니 연구열에서 진짜 제리스디야 아니 응아단 데비토니 아니 제리스기 가서 다 남자한테 연구열에서.
So, Buddhism in general can be broadly categorized into Sutra and Tantra. And in the world of Tantric Buddhism, there is lots of kind of description and concept of the practice of deities, visualization of deities, and so on and so forth. So the practice of Chenrezig also comes in the category of Tantric Buddhism.
저당 제르실이야 릭 망부쇼다스라 릭 망부쇼지 이는 단단 안주 아니 망체지리야 아니 제르시 차동 젠동 찍다 제르시 차시바 찍찍 니 더발 코버다 꾸티진 제도스라.
So generally, Chenrezig or Avalokiteshvara is depicted in many different aspects, many different forms. But in most cases, we would see Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig in the thousand-armed Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig, and then the four-armed Chenrezig.
인자 다 제르시 컨디션 레버리스 액티비티다 제르시 컨디션 레버리스 라바나 제르시 디 가서 다 제르시기 종약의 규진도 어디 씨바이나 인지 쓰거레스 대한지 산지 장섬 아니 초주자와 탐지기 다 두규기 저 인지 전부 찍두는 출하샤자와 tel야 제리스 세워라스라 제리스에서는 용산 종군 어디 초주자와 세던 집이 두규기 아니 즉 세원인지 전부 출하샤자고질래야 안 제리스 센타고레스
Yes. Now, if you ask how generic come into exist, um, what is the kind of account behind Chenrezig? So Chenrezig is believed to be the deity of compassion, and he is considered as the manifestation of the embodiment of compassion of entire Buddhas combined together.
텐자다 nganzo imbayneya ani 제리스 ngongleya 상기에 여대바치 라 간사 개수수속이 아니 지 제리스 냠네 제리스 ngongleya 상기에 다치 yu lamlabso rimbateleya labnin trabayna ani nganzo야 제리스 ngongleya ani kiye 여대바치 tindichi chagdos
So, since Chenrezig is the embodiment of compassion of all Buddhas combined together, we as individual sentient beings can also get enlightened in the form of Avalokiteshvara.
다 제리스기 ngongleya 상기야기 규조디 세원인지 첨보티 세원인지 첨보티 대차거레스로
And the primary cause to get enlightened in the form of Chenrezig is the great compassion.
다 세원인지 첨보 제리스기 구샤야기 규조디 세원인지 첨보치 디기다 아 겐스나만도 아니 족들이야 안 동반이 또비 시세트 고거레스
The primary cause of getting enlightened in the form of Chenrezig is the practice of great compassion, and that great compassion has to be complemented or supported by the condition or supported by the realization of emptiness.
데르다 아니 세원인지 첨보 대당 동반이 또비 신인부디 아니 송도 데비토니 냠스 렘바이나 아니 par 아니 제리즈기 아니 ngongleya 다 상기기여러스
So, if you practice the cultivation of great compassion conjoined with the realization of emptiness, then you can in fact get enlightened in the nature of Chenrezig.
딘자 단데 계란기 아니 되통기 간래 제자베 옴 만네 빼메호 제리즈기 생아디기 아니 이르 툭 쳔바이 아니 생아디게 아니 인지다 동반이 또비기 셔럽 아니 냠스 렌스 그 름바타 찬 상원로지 인르 뒤통이 땡기어레스 챙기어레스 따라
So the mantra depicted on your T-shirt is the six-syllable mantra of Chenrezig. And this six-syllable mantra, in fact, encapsulates the entire practice of great compassion and realization of emptiness.
다들 다 간다스 땡그레세 티 티어티라서 딘자 디낭로라야 옴세지 고당보 이기 옴레스 만니 페메 홍세티 아니 고당보 옴디게 아 세원인지 첨보 아니 계사기 미유기 아 간사디 땡고레스다 간사디 땡고레스 간사디 쳔고레스 옴텔레야 이르스음 여바 디게 아니 룽아 이익스음 그다 쳔된란조 라 룽아 이익스음 용인디 아니 속차 간사직레 마도 젬바 카이 마라스라 딘자 이게 옴디게 춘든 찍라야 릉아 이익숨 천권자 릉아 이익숨의 댐비게 뒤제디 간사차고레스.
Yes. So the mantra of Algeristic is the six-syllable mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. And the first syllable Om represents the body, speech, and mind of the individual practitioner, so which is the object of your compassion. So this basically represents the body, speech, and mind of the practitioner.
레다 드링이다 많이 주디 생아디게 아니 춘든 로지 따라 컨텐 텐텐지 아니 니 슈기 아니 치즈 안 캐랑 떠동데 가디 컴바이네야 많이 주디겠더니 아니 춘든 텐투와지 지기 바이나 오늘 야부요레스.
Yes. So today I'll try to briefly give you an introduction about what does the six-syllable mantra represents. And with this, in future, whenever you put on this T-shirt, then if you could recall the explanation and the representation of the mantra, it would be really good.
이르다 ngan samang tenra ta nga sozo imbai na oman pemme ho se mani dande gorasra mani dam kabdula tanda disamulta tera tsu yagbu yodi tanda disamulta gores tera andi ngan su tang to bana ta di te ani number sanji bi chu anji nani tebo chimbi chu tenji ani sanga doji tebi ta chuzu nimbo di ani nyamlen cheyala yan tan drogu yorasra ha kongejin di drogu goresra.
So we all should, in fact, whenever we find the opportunity to recite this mantra, it's really important to reflect on the meaning of this mantra, because this mantra is really profound and encapsulates the entire practice of Vajrayana.
Terda lunga yisum chungguyanza ani lunga yisum dela ta pat gibuchin samdang bayna ani tagbi lunga yisum chigda matagbi lunga yisum chig ni ngores.
So the first syllable represents the body, speech, and mind. And body, speech, and mind can also be understood in an unpure state of body, speech, and mind, and a pure state or a transformed body, speech, and mind.
Ta tag mata sedi ani nyumum bi tag mata de nyumum ba de shiji bi tag mata la ya ani tag mata kechet shigorasra ani tagbi lunga yisum de kayarsan paba jenrezi ki kusum tuksum tawdi 아니 뉴모마다 시지디비 용스 타비게 아니 타빌링아 있음도 차가워레스 다디 디레스로 다 마다빌링아 있음 슬라운디 다 뉴모마다 시지드바 아니 마방비 아니 다 간사 수수기 올라 소바 로 아니 다 나다 규기 아니 릉아 있음디 마다빌링아 있음드레스.
So the body, speech, and mind can be understood in terms of an impure body, speech, and mind, and a pure body, speech, and mind, or a transformed body, speech, and mind. So here, the purity has to understood whether it is pure from the subtle and gross uh, obscurations. So the body, speech, and mind of Chenrisik or Avalokiteshvara is the pure body, speech, and mind, or the transformed body, speech, and mind, whereas the body, speech, and mind of individuals like us, like me, which is yet to transformed, is considered as the impure body, speech, and mind.
Terda ta mada bilunga yisumti ta bilunga yisumki ngulaya ta gyurgo warasra gyurgo war ta di gyuje ki tap di karres laundi ani tsewa nyinji chambo ta tombani tobi ishi ni bud chagores. Tomoni tobi ishi da ta zewni ishi was na digdo ra tsimi ma shizong chen di chagores.
So now what is required is that we have to transform our impure body, speech, mind into pure body, speech, and mind. And then how can we do that? The method of transforming this is the practice of great compassion and emptiness.
Tsikdung go des chudo chigda. Mani sa digi chanjuk sem, zewni inji chen bu tambi da chanjuk sem di ani tsunguyores.
And then the second syllable mani, the second syllable is is money, which represents great bodhicitta.
Chidang tsik khorang tanda di tanda kyanan dina om di color white color yado, ma di green color yado, ne di ani orange color yado, ra green da orange color ni chik du dongwan di ma ni di chagdo. Di ani tsik khorang tanda di karar lawan di ani norbu sayadi, norbu la kogoras ra.
Yes. So the second syllable, the sixth syllable is depicted in different colors. The money usually represent, or money means a precious jewel.
다 지당긴 안 잠블링 노르버스 라운디 아니 소수기직 데바 카리여바 신디직 아니 토그 다운선 펜줄로 소바직 데딘 카리여바나 아니 노르브여바나 델데는 dru기여라스라 dru투기여라다 강강좀 dru투기여라스라 다 아니 지 신디sam기 아니 직담 현다 지부 마임바 아니 파바드 탐지 kim비 파워 제르지기 공방 드비지기 다 노브다버디 아니 잔주고 샘차거레스 제가 인지 침비 담비 잔주고 샘세 디차거레스 이제 디쳔거레스 더러 디쳔거레스 노브디.
So if you wonder how money or precious jewel represent bodhicitta, so if you possess a precious jewel, the precious jewel has the ability to fulfill much of our wishes and aspirations um, for this life. So similarly, our aspiration to attain the state of Avalokiteshvara could be fulfilled by the practice of bodhicitta. Therefore, the syllable money represents bodhicitta.
데니 페미세디 페마디 지다 메도 페마 밍드레다스라 메도 페마 아니 디기 셔럽 톰바니 닐도비 셔럽 디쳔거레스.
And then Padme or Padma means lotus, and here lotus represents wisdom realizing emptiness.
타디 셰당 망부여다 용그리 바이나야 페낭 안주 메도 페마디 슈드로 초드로 딘디나라야 라 기기도스라 콘 담요 가주스여 바이나야 디키네 기온디 아니 메도 델야 담기 재미싸원이네 마거바데 짱마짱짱치니 아니 기야지 용구도스라 기사든 담이 바이나야 코란라야 담기 재미싸원이네 마거바친 짱마친 꼬니야 라라 퓨처야 딘디기고라스라.
Yes. So usually the lotus flower grows in ponds or rather muddy area. So although it is growing in such a filthy place or in the mud, amidst the mud, but when it blossoms, the flower is never stained by the mud, although it's growing in a muddy area, but the flower is never stained by the impurities of the mud.
The did better than Nanshingi, the Nanzu Benagulaya, Numutusum any drip the Yobainaya, Nanzu sem the Numutusum, drip the Yobainaya, Nelu Dobby, Chinam, Nelu Tolaya, Samlatani, and then Nelu Dobby, Sheriff the Kiondi, and the Sheriff di, and then Numu Big, that Castle, that Kyungi Makuba Tawachin, Kyun bet the Seshiki, and Castle, that Rati nanji chen legi yorasra. Tinza pema digi ani sherab di tsengu yores.
Yes. So just like lotus flower grows in muddy area, but rather remains unstained by the mud or impurities. Similarly, when we cultivate wisdom, although our mind, ordinary mind, is defiled by afflictive emotions, but the wisdom remains uninfluenced or unstained by such afflictive emotions. And the wisdom is also responsible for eliminating such afflictive emotions.
Tinza da dini tamaga hong se di ani dini ta nyam du jugba ani song du jugba telaya ani tanda di ani hong di kogores.
And then the sixth syllable, hum, represents the union of great compassion and uh, realization of emptiness.
Ta tinti tsewa nyingi chenpi chambi ki chanchu sem tang tongpa nyi tobi sherab nyingbo di kanda chin ta nyamsu len kogores. Kanda chin ta nganzu rangyu la ya chung kogores lawandi. Di chik nyamsu len tang tang chung tang di ani tsik tangpo om shibi ki tsik di tuanda la ya sam tang na ani yongya chik yungu yores tara nyamlen ki rinpa chik ani kotugu yores ta.
And now, when we talk about practicing the union of these two, if you wonder how can we cultivate these two, and then if you reflect the meaning of the first syllable, om in fact encapsulates the practice and the cultivation of um, compassion and great compassion and realization of emptiness.
Pena tangpo ani chanchu ku sem tsewa nyingi chenpi chambi chanchu ku sem ta nyingi gedang ka rinpa di om saya di kanda tengres tsungres la wandi pigi igi sumk awa ma sumki ani digi lunga yiksum tsungres la ra lunga yiksum ani lunga yiksum da denpi ani dushe tela ya ta simjins sokchak simjin segi yabanza simjin saya di lunga yiksum da denpi dushe chila ya ta simjin ki minta yabanza simjin segi res semden gila ya ani simjin segi waras ra.
Yes. So first, the syllable om represents the body, speech, and mind of a sentient being, because the syllable om is in fact composed by adding three different sounds together, a, o, and m, and becomes the sound om. So just like this sound om is composed by adding these three sounds together, similarly, um, the sentient beings are characterized by body, speech, and mind. So anyone who possesses body, speech, and mind is characterized as a sentient being.
다 semden la wandi semden gi kasorda rangshin de lengi de kandaji ta lengi de kandaji ors la wandi deva da dungar mende be rangshin chikba jors semden sam logi pi lengi gi ani dravi cha de ani deva da dungar mende ba dres
Now, if you ask what is the common kind of characteristic or common feature among all the sentient beings who possess these qualities, and all sentient beings share an innate wish to seek happiness and innate wish to discard and avoid suffering. So this universal aspiration is shared by all sentient beings.
디고 nguyen 수지래 도스라. 디 nguyen 수지 ngan도 참말로 dos 아니 롬바 마치 와이나야. sobda 마치 와이나야. 아니 샘감디 데반 데바다 둥한 문데바 난 사마치 gyure wasra.
So even if you look among ourselves, of course, all of us maybe came from different countries. All of us might look physically, we might look slightly different. But one thing which is common to all of us, which we all share, is the wish to seek happiness and avoid suffering.
당 nguyen sul deban debanda 둥한 문데바 인자 딘디기 미바 텔라 미니 둥할 문딩이기 심젠들라야 아니 콜라야 둥하다타나 치마로 냠비 로디 끼어바지래도 아스라 끼어바지 간선들이 공무원 내선 tum바지 공무원 내선 tum비기 삼로지 따마투바이나 다디 아니 랑기 끼어리마도 쟁기 끼어 차기요 말레스 라 남주기 만다나 nguyen nesudan tumbi samloji tang tuguyo mare namjugin dangin jin bayna nguyen nesudan tumbi samloji tang tuguyo rasra tinza ani simjan tamje dunga degu me bayna simjan tamje dunga datana chimaru nyambi lodi ki öba ki na nguyen nesudan tumba tindiji chagwanza simjan tamje dunga datana chimaru nyambi lodi sewanin chimasin tires.
Yes. So since all sentient beings want happiness and do not want suffering, so this is a kind of this is a fact that all sentient beings want happiness and do not want suffering. So since all sentient beings want happiness and do not want suffering, now it is kind of suitable to wish all sentient beings to meet with happiness and kind of avoid suffering. So if you make aspirations, if you pray, may all sentient beings encounter happiness and eliminate and removed from suffering. So this aspiration aligns with the fact that all sentient beings want happiness and do not want suffering. Now, if you can't cultivate such aspirations, in fact, it is our own lack of intelligence. If we lack intelligence, then we should make aspirations that aligns with the fact.
다 nguyen nesudan tumbi samlo tang tuyalaya sherab gogoyores. nguyen nelung tongi sherab gogoresra.
So, in order to think in accordance with the reality or in accordance with the fact, we must cultivate wisdom.
들다 nelung silawandi che tamjig nelung shegores. ro ne randa shen tamjig nelung dadan ani ji kanza da kanza kanla tabi shela soba tamjig nelung shegwanza zodi rang tebi ta simjen tamji silawandi kanza jige ge shegorasra kanza ge nelung shegoda rang nelung shingodasra.
So here, when we talk about cultivating wisdom, realizing the reality, that the reality is not confined to certain things, but rather we are basically talking about reality of all phenomena, including the person and beings and phenomena in general.
Tenza kansa di kandrajin shagres laundi tanji shiwanaji igi tambo omdige igi ao masumgi ani lunga yisum tsengres lunga yisum chobala pigi kansa shi takpa tsam re ma to ani luchigbola kansa kin tanyin togo mare semchigbola togo mare ani nga chigbola togo mundas tanyin tak togo mundas ro tinza tisum chokbala pa kansa shi takpa tsamdi kansa kin nilu chagores tinza kansa sayadi pigi rawandu chumeba 파 민기 딱섬 토네 저 샤단 딘디지 다디 아니 지단 요르 차오여레스라 이바이나야 어 딘디지 토네다 아니 셰럽 니룽 토미 셰럽디 아니 에 기비 다 탑디 땡 거레스.
So here, when we talk about how a person exists, how a being exists, a person or a being is characterized by someone who possesses body, speech, and mind, which is represented by the first syllable om, just like the om is composed of three sounds a, o, ma. Similarly, the person is characterized by someone who possesses body, speech, and mind. So what does this mean is that the person is merely designated upon the aggregation of body, speech, and mind. Simply physical body is not sufficient to consider that as a person or a being. So all of body, spirit, and mind should come together, and the person or the being is designated upon this. So which means a person does not exist from its own side. A person do not exist inherently, but rather designated or imputed on the body, speech, and mind.
데다 단단 감수 셈노야 지 심제 탐지 파샤니 아니 소수 년걸로 예비지 속차 참을로야 닌지 기고를 슬라와이나 아니 소수 가사 요래 마가사 요래 데 탐제로야 제와 기고를 슬라나 감수 셈로 마숑어스로 차가도 하스라 임바이네야 디 당안주 가서 다지 간진 간주 남주디 안지 세드 댐바지야 롱메비 다 균젠 제마도 아니 인지 게 무역 균센지 인지 마기와 딘디 사마레스 로 응비 네루 삼니 남주 세드 댐바 롱행게 아니 게부 당바 참로라야 아니 인지디 기고레스 로 심전 탐젤미 비세 인지 전부디 기고레스 만솔 게마도가 가즈나 네루 탐 삼담마도바 균센 디마도 패션 로사요 사마레스.
So right now, if we think about cultivating compassion towards all sentient beings, so let alone cultivating sentient beings towards all sentient beings, even cultivating compassion towards our immediate beings, we might find it difficult. However, the reason why we feel difficult to include all sentient beings in the circle of our compassion is not because they are unsuitable to be the object of our compassion, but rather it is because of the lack of our own kind of intellect or intelligence. When our intellect is fully developed, then we would see that all sentient beings could be the object of our compassion.
데다 디기 라 더너디즈다 디기 아니 제리즈기 코디에 되네 라고라 넘버산지 비추 코디에 찬산지 되네 걸 삭돈도 택바신 비추 디 나네 단다다 안 잠블레나야다 용수 차데바다 베균 안 된기 아니 추 냠랭 뭐 시긴지 마나 내든 디 토라 상로 마단 로사 싸우니 요 말이스.
So the explanation of this should help us understand the concept of Chenrezig in general, and also the practice of Buddha Dharma and particularly the practice of Mahayana Buddhism, and especially the practice of Tibetan Buddhism, is in fact centered around this concept.
In the money this dance, in the thing at the character, singing some of the thing at Kin Drovia, volunteer to net, and in it, pig tap division the thing at the Chigia.
Yes.
Thing at the character, money this dance.
Yes. So today I wanted to give you this rosary or mala. I usually take a few rosaries with me when I meet volunteers. I would usually gift them this. So today I want to give you this rosary, and I recommend or I request you to recite the 6th level mantra whenever you find time.
You're welcome. Character the Awashon, Tashima Teodarochis.
So with this, we'll conclude with this question. Excellent question. Now, if others have any different questions, you can ask.
You have more? Maybe there are other. Yeah, please.
Could Geshe explain a little bit about dependent arising and how awareness of dependent arising can help with our attachment to samsara?
And the dependent arising 들어가게 텐데 텐들기 고아디카스라 네 텐데기 고알라 테네 아니 고알라 젬바 독수 간디디고는 디지스나 치스.
Jadang Tendris Siondi, Muyu Netsuchiki, Geshe Dosra, Muyu Netsuchiki, and the Cancer Mambuchi, Gawarmuchi, Kalutindis, Saint Tendegi Samludi, and a suit Tana Pentoyavach, and Jinjimi Delaya, Namba in Mugova, and Chuba in Mugova, Chetangi Michi in Baina. Chidangi Mich da Chi Namchu Yabu Gongin Mijimana, Tendrik told some time, Jasijadam Pingios, Tindisungudusra, Chigtiris.
So first, when we talk about dependent arising, we should understand that dependent arising is an explanation of a fact or a reality. Therefore, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, some of you might be familiar with his teachings, that he occasionally explains that whoever could reflect and think about the meaning of dependent arising, you could in fact get lots of benefit from contemplating on the meaning of dependent arising. You don't necessarily be Buddhist to think about dependent arising. You don't necessarily be religious to think about dependent arising, but rather if you have interest or if you have kind of intellectual capacity to think about this, you can in fact get benefited.
Then Tender said the Karishegor Slavdi, Chunamki Yotsulti, Yotsul the Shegorasra, Chunamki Yotsul the Shegores.
So when we say dependent arising explains about how things exist.
Tinsangi, some Dangan Zendamam saw the Goanza, and in Naran Samsu Shegorasra. Number Sangibi, Kibi Ombutsok, ni ta lo ni tong 죽게스기 나눠야 전샤비 아니 산지 좀 된디기 쯔비 아니 지 키비 옹부용 수조바기 아니 최남기 요속 돌아야 제바슈 제제 아니 아 딘세기도 와서라 최남기 요속 돌아야 가즈 제바 제투바이나 요술디 아니 뻑투고 열어서라 최남기 요술도 뻑통원디 아니 인룩셋 요술도 인룩디 싱그러서라 인룩디 시원디 아니 인룩라 신줄로도 슈비 로디 따라신 가그라서라 딥 개침부 쇼지 지그도스
Buddha and many other Buddhist teachers or scholars explained about this concept. So one thing we should remember is that the concept of dependent arising is all about how things exist, and they in fact did a lot of inquiry, lot of kind of a contemplative thinking about how things exist. So the more you reflect about how things exist, you will in fact develop understanding regarding the existence or regarding the reality of the phenomena or things. And when you understand that, all the distorted assumptions or the distorted understanding regarding the reality of things will be eliminated.
데즈다 지단다 니 만통 얘기다 넘버 산지비 키비 안보기 아니 송 망부 용그라서라 니 통야다 만통 알지나 아니 gangyur geba ngi mantong ay chagre ma ngi thong yo marasra ina ngarang thong bi gi ani kibi ombu tu song na la ya chi ani yotsuk to la ya shu ani rigba drimni ani tseju che ya ma to pen tendu gi chi tseri wa na shin gi chi nishu kar yo me ro chi sujing ngobo to so la ya chi nishu kar yo me ani sujing tamu 아니 찍라 뉴슈 카르여미 안 디츠 니숨 손에 델라 뉴슈 카즈 뉴슈 토라야 계제시에자와 싸워니는 제마송스
So there are a lot of writings, Buddhist text, which I have myself read and seen. And of course, there are more writings which I have not seen. But as per my own exposure to such literary works, I have found that most of these were really about, they did lots of inquiry about how things exist and the reality of the things. So the most of the research or most of this inquiry is all about how they exist. And you would never find any inquiry about the potential or of the subtle particles or the potential of combining more particles and elements and so on and so forth. So you won't find any description about the power or the potential of things, but rather all about how they in fact exist.
디 디냉가비 차고서 상고드스라 안주 뉴슈 그 토라야 심죽 제바이나 뉴슈 카르여면 통원디 아니 착당 계약이 년가 요바지 안주 줄라야로 아니 지 샹라야지 아니 느슴 계약 디리 제바나 텐데 네투사르 삼비 로키알로 소바 아니 착동 젠섬 계약이 규착 무시거래면 다스라 뉴슈고 토라야 제주치온디 인루고 토라야 제주치온디 아니 착당 옹송디 아니 뇽르로 되어지 인루 코랑 아니 쉐남기 인루디 시온디 아니 착당 뇽르로야지 딘디지기 땐데 제버 제당 돈 딘디지 갸체 갸담을 케버 요서리 삼삼로지 인제 산 넘버 산지 존라야 땡진 제원 존왔슬라운디 땡진 제원니 찍찍려야 땡니 총마레 마도 라완도 요 마레슬라운디 요츠 코랑 탈에 게시셔버라스라 디게 아니 인루라 몽비기 마리비 짜와치비기 차담 모습 독투고 요서리스 아니 코판투고 요서리스 둥하판투고 요서리스
Yes. So you would find in the Buddhist literature that lots of inquiries is all about how things exist, not about how to use the potential of how to use the power of an element or a particle. So the significance of this is that if the more you know about how to harness the power of a subtle particle and so on and so forth, there is a tendency to develop more destructive thoughts. And there is also a tendency to put this knowledge into kind of destructive use to destroy others and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, the more you study, the more you contemplate about how things exist, knowing about knowing about the reality of things and phenomena will in fact help us to reduce our distorted thoughts based on their existence and also reduce afflictive emotions which arises due to distorted assumption and distorted thoughts. Therefore, the very term dependent arising suggests how things exist. Your arising or your existence is in fact dependent on other things. So the realization or the understanding of dependent arising will in fact help us to eliminate afflictive emotions and also attain liberation from samsara.
라다 니슈고 돌 제바치온디 니버 카즈고 슈크침부 요아 디츠 라야기 탑시치 갈런 드샤가 다스라 니버 메규드 파테 딘디기 따지 아니 랑겔 셴팡기 삼로디 아니 쭈용야 도치 인루 코랑 돌 삼당바이나 인짐니 추 톱과지 간요 말았으라 인루 시비 로디용야 인루 코랑 또야 아니 랑갈야 리버드온디 mumbo mari was said rach. Dus teda, Dasha Shetan Kandrajin by Naya, Maribi on the Choma Remado, we need some tombaina, picking Dasha Kisagi, you movie Nil Koran tombaina, Zavanin in Dasha di Shukjima Dikio Mares.
So if you kind of study about the power or the potential of a subtle particle or an element, there is a tendency to put this knowledge into destructive force, use in a destructive manner. You might want to utilize that power to destroy others and gain victory to oneself. So all this sense of competition, all this sense of destroying others, and all other afflictive emotions really occurs due to such thought. So if you look at how destructive, afflictive emotions arises, you would always see that they arises out of ignorance, out of not knowing the full picture, not knowing the reality. For instance, when you develop attachment towards an object, that attachment is based on ignorance about that object. When you fully understand the reality of an object, your attachment will diminish. Or this suggests that all afflictive emotions are based or come out of ignorance, and the understanding of the reality will not kind of cause such afflictive emotions.
Rather, Nishuk Tola Sangdani, and Nuba Karishuk Yoba di Munzeji, and this was the Lombala Mevaina, and this is Shango Lombala Yemeda, the Yosagi, and the Saja Tombana, Saja the Troya, and Lomba the Troya, and that Dindig, and Dinyoya. And Dinyoya Pesha Mandandi, and Jim Bamaselaya, and Jig Lega Tailors of a Shukshir Dinosaur. Tindikanja Yungiorosera, Tindikanja Ditsawati, Nishu Koran Cheva Chetawangi, Yonde Yuruj, Tindiroj Tongdosera.
Yes. So if we kind of do so much studies and research about harnessing the power of the particles and so on and so forth. So what this happens is that first you will see if your country possess such power and who others possess such power. And if your neighboring country has such, you would try to acquire that. And then if you do not have sufficient fund to acquire that or buy that, then the concerned government might tax ordinary citizens to acquire such destructive weapons and so on and so forth. So all this happened due to focusing more about how to um, kind of how to acquire the potential or the power of the elements and so on and so forth.
Dirda Tenjung said, Tenjung Res Laundi, should Tamji Tolaya, Jebachi Church, Ra, Nanzu Sujing Ngubuchin Jing by Nea, Ko Kandaj Yungudos, Ra, Gyu Kandaj Tengdo, Ra, and you go to go Mado, you go na you chick dig ni cargo do, and it can't cargo do, Ra, or the dig, and then dig tola sound down the, you look the shingoras, you look the shiondi, and it should tam chiggy, and it nedan the shindroach. Ra, tension Devon Joey, and it nedun titola, river dun the and it should tam chiggy, you look pot to it. Right. 인지민이 최 탐지기 일로 떠봐이나 최 탐지비 라바 창사로 로고문도 아스라 산지 좀된 디 탐지기 뭐 인사디 땡진 대원 좀 얘기 아니 균생와 리버 디도네 최 탐지기 일로 뻗고 여반사 아니 탐지기 비 세니디 데니 토고 여사레스라 마도 아니 야갈놈 마도 셴발 페메바
So, therefore, dependent arising talks about how things exist, how causes and conditions give rise to its result, and in order for a particular thing to exist, what kind of causes and conditions should be assembled. So all these inquiries about the existence of things really comes from understanding dependent arising. So when you understand a dependent arising, you in fact understand the reality of all phenomena. So in order to know the reality of all phenomena, you don't really need to individually know all phenomena, but rather when you know the reality of phenomena in general, you can in fact, it is similar to knowing all phenomena. So the reason why we call Buddha as an omniscient being is because he realizes the reality of things. And because of realizing that, he is termed known as the omniscient one. Otherwise, if you were to realize all things individually, Buddha never visited other countries.
Excellent. Didn't one
So
like shares came in this.
that's all I have to say now.
One more. Okay. Who is this?
Tupton, there's a question online from Janet, and she's asking Geshe, could Geshe explain a bit more about renunciation of afflictive emotions and what practice or practices support this? And she says, "Hello, Geshe-la. P.S. Hello, Geshe-la, and many thanks for considering my question."
No. Na tato la tiwa chik turage. Disungsha. Nyomong le ngepa jung su kanti ina dikola yanju chikson ro chis. Nyomong le ngepa jung su do nash. Nyomong le ngepa jung su ta. Ani nyomong le ngepa jung che to. Ani nyamne kari chi gures.
다 공등의 쉬버타 제 아니 뉴물링 예반 종이 체드로 시레다스라 뉴물링 예반 종거나 공등의 쉬자와 뒤돌랑 예버도 상당 거야지 이내야당 뉴물리 비기 아니 예반 종도 길로기야라 뉴물링 예반 종도 길로기발라 아니 뉴무기 nganzolayachi neba khazus tangi yeme din thonggo dasara
So I think my previous explanation kind of answered this question about how to uh, renounce from afflictive emotions. But now, to renounce from afflictive emotions, first we must cultivate the wish to renounce from afflictive emotions. And in order to cultivate that wish, we must understand the destructive nature of afflictive emotions.
다 지단기 네바당 펜바세지 시고라스라 뭐 뜻이 네바다 펜바 라운디 네제지다 펜시치 니용거요바 딩문진 치고라스라
So generally, we should consider the constructive side and the destructive side, or the beneficial side and the destructive side of things.
아니 펜바스 라운디 랑기 네바 드비아지 치기요바나 펜바라다 랑기 문데바디 톡도 밥주고요바나 아니 오면나 돼야디 만드바 치기요바나 아니 네바레도 아스라
So when we say the constructive side or something that is beneficial to us, what it means is that if it fulfills our aspiration, if it brings about what we want, then we usually call this as beneficial or constructive. But on the contrary, if something obstruct us to achieve what we are aspiring, and if it brings about something that we don't want, then we call it destructive or not beneficial.
다디 제디게 단 데든 타르투바디 데비튼 타르투바디 데바레도 아스라 데바레 아스라 문데비 전다 타르투바디 둥아이 받다 땅안 주기 랭기로 저레스라 데르와스라 데자다 도르드나 랑라야 둥아 제기요바나 둥아 징게텔라 아니 느제다 데와 징게텔라야 아니 펜 도르제스 딜랍 초고레스 딜랍 고레스라
So from this, what we can understand is that what we want, what we wish is happiness, and what we do not want is suffering. So that is innately kind of true to all of us, that we all want happiness and do not want suffering.
틴자 두스테바이나 뉴문비기 로디기 둥알 징고레스 둥알 칸드지 용바이나야 사와 뉴문을 투겨레스 뉴문 사와니니 맹이 간사들 둥알 사와니니 요마레스 디 둥알 용약이 아니 용거를 싱 말이다 용약이 유진거를 요마레스 난주다 소스 케 말람바이나야 용이 드비시 남다지고라 사와니니 요마레스다 둥할 싸워니 세비 간사들이야 둥할 용이 견센 남다 싸워니 요 말했더라 dungar ki tsawa di nyumu imbala gyunzen namda yorasdara.
Um, so, the destructive nature of afflictive emotion is that afflictive emotions always bring about suffering, and the root of all this suffering lies in afflictive emotions. So, if there are no afflictive emotions, there are no suffering. Those beings who have completely eradicated afflictive emotions, they don't experience any suffering. So, uh, uh, um, um, a cessation of afflictive emotions is in fact a total eradication of suffering as well.
딘디기 다 아니 녀견 탐지기 tsawa nyumu imba di ngunzen che tubayna. Teni nyumu li ngeban jondu ki samlo di kigiris. Te tsamal kigiwarisra. Nyumu di 녀견 탐지기 tsawa imba 통이 kansa chigla. 아니 nyumu li ngeban jondu mengi kansa chig misik warisra.
So when you see that the root of all suffering lies in afflictive emotion, and afflictive emotion is responsible for all sufferings, then uh, renunciation from afflictive emotions, renunciation from suffering will also arise. So, um, um, even after knowing the destructive nature of afflictive emotion, it is quite unlikely that you still do not want to renounce from it.
디 베탁 chen 아니 탑길라 투지 쳔바 데미 데마 가든지 ngombo zoba 상기니 도젤라 통 최송디 아니 돔 티톤이 잡는 송바라서라 뎀바시디
So, based on this fact, Buddha first taught the teaching on Four Noble Truth.
딘자 따지 아니 디기지 뉴몬레 네번 존디기 로직기 고고요바나 뎀바실야 냠네 치고야지 아니 뉴몬레 넘바 게고요바나야 뎀바실야 냠네 치고야지 간지 넘바 산기바지기 바이나 아니 뎀바시기 산지 좀 된디 산기니 토마 남비 랍자 뎀바시기 람딩 랍샤 저러스 텔 라바이나 데니 더 시우 쇼치 아니 뿌타고 콩타고 아니 균생 여바 딘지 차고라 따라
So, if you want to renounce from afflictive emotions, we must practice the teaching on Four Noble Truth. So, the teaching on Four Noble Truth is the first public sermon that Buddha gave after he attained enlightenment. So, if you want to eliminate afflictive emotion, we must practice a Four Noble Truth. And if you want to kind of gain renunciation from afflictive emotions, we must also practice Four Noble Truths.
Thank you. Pishidira is enough. You have questions? No. Yani nganzo ta jela zapasanti SPC library peshe chinda chungniwe namato yosamaris.
And so I think the SP might announce that we don't have the Friday's session in the next. We don't have Friday session probably in November or December.
December.
Yeah, we'll meet again in December.
Final Lamrim prayer. From my two types of merits vasa space that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a grand length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings, with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be grounded boundless peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time, by even this graded path to enlightenment completed, due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtues practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. I pray for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. I pray for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings. Through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss! Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in a glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you very much. And here just a few announcements. So today we have a guided meditation in a Gompa at 1:15 with Venerable Lassom. And as Geshe mentioned, so we will not have a Friday teaching until the end of November. So the class will be again 5th December. As Geshe will have a holiday. And then this weekend we have a retreat weekend with Geshe about the 12 links of dependent origination. So everyone is welcome to join. Thank you.